All right. Is this thing on? Lights change. So, welcome, Sim fans. SimFanatic with you. Thank you for joining me for this first live stream event. My green screen came, so I'm excited about that. Although, there's some things that I need to adjust. So I do have a box light coming. Unfortunately, it didn't come yet. So I'm look a little red here and that, but in any case, that should be coming tomorrow. So hopefully for the next green screen, for the next live event, rather, my green screen and my box light can all be together and have a better experience, better lighting, I guess. I need all the help I can with this face. So do appreciate y'all joining me today. I'm super excited for this first live stream. So again, what we're going to be doing today, I've got the Alpha and Bravo throttle quadrants set up. I got a new webcam, as you can see here, and so that you can actually see me manipulate the controls, the flight yoke, of course, the Bravo quadrant, and then if you can see under here, I've also got the TPR Thrustmaster rudder pedals. So kind of a cool thing. So we'll see all of this stuff in action, and hopefully, I thought, I got this gooseneck webcam to see if I can get everything into a view, and that was about the best I could do. I'll mess around with that a little bit. One of you that had commented on one of my videos, I still to this day think it's rather funny. The comment was, the guy spends thousands of dollars on flight sim equipment and has the crappiest desk ever. So I do have a new desk that will be here. Actually, they're both here. I just got to put them together. And so thank you, my wife, for ordering those. And yeah, we're going to play some musical rooms with the family. We got some rooms to move around in that. So I hope to have, point being, I hope to have a better setup for streaming here in the future. So yeah, with that being said, let's go ahead and get started. So again, today we will be flying Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020. I usually just refer to it as Microsoft Flight Simulator, but, it came out in 2020. I mean, it's 2021. They're continuously updating it, which I think is great. Asobo Studios is the main developer, and, of course, there's Shark AI that does the buildings and geometric shapes based off of satellite imagery, which is insanely awesome. It's amazing that they can do this stuff. Leave it to Microsoft and Azure, but it is pretty cool stuff. So feel free to comment in that. If you have any questions as we get rolling here, I will try to answer them the best I can. And so do see that several of you are on, so appreciate you joining me. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. Now, first thing I want to show here, since I've got this, I'll do air quotes, studio set up. This is really what it looks like. So I decided to add this like right at the end here. Yeah, I'm going to bring that up if I can find it. So that's what it looks like in my office, and I will be moving. I'll have a little more room. I feel kind of cramped here, with all this. But so yeah, I should be, I think in the next week or two we'll be set up in a new office, have some more room, because you can see the bed behind me is kind of cramping me here, so it's pretty tight quarters. But it works. It works. I mean, it's probably better than some. So I do feel fortunate, and I'm thankful for the things that I am able to do and have. So, but I thought, maybe you'd all be interested in what it looks like. Many of the videos I've had before my green screen, of course, you could see straight behind me, and you'd see the doors and the closets and that. But thought I would just throw that out there for y'all to see. Okay, let's go ahead. I'll try to stop rambling. Let's go ahead and get to the content, why you're here, what you want to see. So I know Incredibly Meh Gaming is here. I want to first of all do a shout out to my friend behind that channel. Do check it out. That's Incredibly MEH. You can see it in chat. Gaming. Definitely my friends helped me out with a lot of tips in that for being able to stream, better image quality and that sort of thing. So, and along with my animated logo, I do appreciate all the help he has given me. So we want to start off with a shout out there. Thank you. And of course, I want to do a shout out to my wife and my kids. They've supported me in this endeavor. It does take a lot of my time. It does. I've mentioned in another video, I've got a lot of hobbies. and my wife had reminded me of a few of them I might have even forgot. So I tend to jump into stuff. I don't know if attention deficit, I probably am. She could probably argue that I am. But I'll get into a hobby and I'll really dive in and read a bunch of books, and then I'll jump to something else. I'm hoping with this one, though, I don't know. I play drums. I've been in a band. I told her I kind of felt like it was I was about to play, coming on the first live stream with all of you. But anyway, I do want to do a shout out to my family as well for coping with me as I put a lot of time into this thing. So, all right, so get started. Let's jump into it. So first thing here that I want to show is there is a way to change the time, and so you notice it's pretty dark here. And by the way, when you first load up Microsoft Flight Simulator, the frame rates right now are at like 23, 25, even dropping down to 19, which is pathetically bad. But that's also because it's loading all the textures. And that's one thing I want to mention about Microsoft Flight Simulator is the fact that it uses Bing satellite data, and it also uses basically what's called mesh that gives you the hills and the mountains and the valleys and all that, which is super cool. And it just basically overlays that satellite imagery over top. Now, X-Plane's been doing this for a while for something that's called Ortho4XP. It required a massive amount of storage space, especially depending on what kind of resolution you wanted that imagery to be. So this isn't Microsoft Flight Simulator coming out with this isn't really new. But Microsoft, what is new that they've done is they figured out a way to get the imagery on the landscape in that mesh, that 3D mesh I was mentioning. But they figured out a way to stream it. So you don't have to because I'll tell you what, I've got 2 Western Digital Black hard drives that are 8 terabytes each, and I've filled out almost both of them, not quite both of them, but just in having the United States and half of Europe. That's the kind of, and you'd have to pre-download all of that, and you would have to kind of, manipulate the data, get it imported, and then into X-Plane. It took a lot of time and a lot of storage. What Microsoft has done, or Sobo rather, Sobo, again, the developers that are just amazing on this thing, they figured out with Azure in Microsoft how to stream that so you don't have to download all the content. Now, you still can. Like, if you have a slow internet connection, you can still download the content and put it local, and then that way you don't have to stream it as you go. But it's pretty amazing technology that they've come up with, and I think it's only going to get better. Shark AI, what they've done is they actually have gone another step further, and they've taken the basically the imagery, and then they've created structures, 3D structures based off that satellite imagery. So that's when people talk about, well, I could fly over my house, and yeah, my house kind of looked like, maybe not exact, but it's not going to have the wreath that you had on Christmas on the garage door or anything like that, but the basic shape of your house is going to be pretty close. And so Shark AI is the ones that did that along with the Sobo. So just amazing stuff. The one thing I like about this too, as opposed to X-Plane, is you can actually change the time of day on the fly. So if I go to weather here, and hopefully you can see this, and I'll change it so it's 5:40 p.m. Well, it really isn't. What time would it be in San Diego right now? It'd probably be, 11:11? So we're just going to drag this. But notice how I can change this. And you can set this, by the way, to real time, real weather. For this first run, I wanted to make it, pretty clean and straightforward. So we're going to fly blue skies with a standard pressure and daylight time. But anyway, so I just want to show that you can change that just by the slider here, which is pretty cool. When you're in X-Plane, for those of you that sim on X-Plane, which is, by the way, still great sim. The thing with that is when you change the day or the textures, it actually has to go back out and reload, and it can take like up to 5 minutes to reload, just changing from like daylight to sunset and nighttime, because it actually downloads a whole different set of textures. Well, Asobo's figured out a better way to do that, and you can just slide that on the fly. So I wanted to show everyone that one really quick. Okay, so let's get started. So the things I have: Alpha, flight control from Honeycomb; Bravo, throttle quadrant from Honeycomb; and down here the TPR rudder pedals, and those are from Thrustmaster. They are kind of expensive. So the thing that's exciting for some, I love these pedals, by the way. I'm not going to change them. But the thing about Honeycomb, and do check out Honeycomb. If you haven't checked out Honeycomb, check them out because they're amazing. They're going to have rudder pedals as well called Charlie. Oh, wow. That worked out well, didn't it? Alpha, Bravo, Charlie. And they're going to come out with rudder pedals that, the quality for their stuff is good. And, the TPR pedals from Thrustmaster are complete aluminum metal. So I would suspect that Honeycomb with their Charlie rudder pedals will probably be a combination of metal and plastic, a rubberized plastic, that type of thing. But still great quality. And so I'll be looking for that, but I'm sure they'll be at a better price point. If you're interested, the TPR pedals are going to range anywhere from $550 to $600. I've seen it even higher right now during the COVID pandemic, and a lot of people are buying this stuff because they want entertainment. So anyway, a shout out to Honeycomb and Thrustmaster on those. So first, what I like to do before I take off for any flight, again, we're at San Diego, so we can go outside of the plane here, and actually we can take a look around if you want. So we're at the San Diego International Airport. Now this is Payware Scenery, and by the way, I have done a scenery review for this scenery. So check that out. It's in my videos, of course, and it's a really good Payware Scenery, actually. I think it's around $20. That wouldn't normally happen, fans. Now, there's a buddy of mine asked about, are those real? Are those other pilots, virtual pilots that are flying those? And is it multiplayer? And yes, it is. That's a great question. It is multiplayer. But this also, what Microsoft and Asobo has done is they've actually combined real life flight schedules for aircraft as well. So some of them are AI and some of them are actually virtual pilots that are out there flying online. So you wouldn't normally see two planes intersecting like that over a runway. But anyway, or at least you hope not, right? So scenery, San Diego, beautiful scenery, and what I love is my family. We've gone here a couple times, and it has the Coronado Bridge. It's got the Hotel del Coronado, or if I'm getting that right. As you can see, it's got the downtown area. I know you're here to fly, but I did want to fly with me. But I did want to cover, the scenery, because we'll be flying from obviously here, San Diego International, to Santa Barbara Municipal, which is also a Payware flight, fans. And what we'll be looking at with that is we'll be looking at the scenery as we come in. It's not a massive package by any means, but that's provided by Orbix, and so I think that one, if I recall correctly, I think that's probably around the $20 range as well. So, but yeah, let's get to it. Let's go back into the aircraft. So first thing I like to do before starting any of these birds up, for immersion, I'll turn off the yokes because I've got my yoke here, so I just kind of pretend that right in front of me is the yoke. I've got it kind of aligned. I know you can't. Well, you can kind of see it maybe, but it's right where I think it would be in the aircraft, or pretty close. Not quite, but pretty close. So first things first, we got to get this thing lit up. So we're going to start with what's called a cold and dark start. So I like to open up a little window there, get some ambient sounds from the airport, and get a little wind. Here's some of the other aircraft there. And first things first, so what we need to do and this, by the way, I should have mentioned this. This is Payware aircraft from Coronado. Now, Coronado, they've been around for a while. They've done aircraft for Flight Simulator 10 or FSX. They've done it for Prepared 3D, so P3D, as many of you probably fly. And, of course, Microsoft Flight Simulator and X-Plane. And they're beautiful-looking aircraft. They have good texture work on them. They have really good sounds for engine sounds in that, typically. They are not study level by any means, but in terms of like comparing this aircraft to the default Microsoft, the aircraft that comes with Microsoft, far superior, in my opinion, my humble opinion. It's far superior. So, but a shout out to Coronado on that. I've got mixed feelings on Coronado. Sometimes it seems like they just pump aircraft out as fast as they can, and it sometimes feels like a money grab. But other times, like with this aircraft, they do a good job. And so I don't know, maybe they're taking a different approach when it comes to Microsoft, but it is good aircraft. The other thing I want to point out, if you look at my Alpha Flight Control, if you have this or if you have Track IR, so I have Track IR, so if enable and disable, I use this button I've configured. But if I look to the left and I look to the right, that's what this odd looking mechanism on my headset is. It's got 3 lights that basically reflect off of a receiver, and it uses that to base on what, just by slight movements of your head, where you're looking at around your virtual cockpit. And I'll tell you what, so I was an alpha tester for Microsoft Flight Simulator, and they didn't have support for Track IR, and it was, I got so used to it with X-Plane that it almost felt like I had one hand tied behind my back, have to use the mouse to look back and forth. And I still do that, so I have my enable, disable. I do that when I'm trying to, manipulate the controls and that, just because it's more steady. But like when you're flying around and you want to look left, right, or above, top, down, all that, it's so great to have the Track IR. So I definitely recommend picking that up if you don't already have it, or at least, the very least, check it out. I could probably do a review on it and get a little more in depth with it. But so let's go ahead. And so to start this aircraft, we need to get the fuel selector turned on. So as we can see here, we've got our fuel for our left engine. So we're going to click that up, and then our right engine. You're not going to get too far, fans. If you don't do that, nothing's going to happen. The other thing, what is always important as you're trying to start an aircraft, I am a real pilot, by the way. I should mention that. I haven't flown for a while, but I do have my private pilot's license, my PPL, if you will. So for those of you that are pilots, real life pilots out there as well, not just virtual pilots, I'm going to take some shortcuts. So, bear with me. It is a sim, so there's some advantages. We should take advantage of being in a simulator as opposed to real life. So don't chastise me for not following exact procedures and everything, because I'm not going to. Just want to make sure that's known. But before you start at any aircraft, you got to make sure your mixture's on. So if you look at my Bravo throttle quadrant, I've got these 2 red levers here. So I'm just going to push those fully forward, and you can see in my virtual cockpit that those went forward as well. And now I'll manipulate these blue levers here. This is a complex aircraft, meaning it's got a variable pitch prop. And so I can move those up and down. That just changes the pitch on the propeller. And then, of course, I've got my throttle here that every aircraft will have to control how much throttle you have for your thrust, if you will, for your aircraft. So, all right, let's go ahead and start. So you got to make sure you have for this aircraft, you got to make sure you have the tanks on for the gas, the fuel, and you got to make sure your mixture is full. Mixture is how much fuel is going to go into the engine. So you got to have that on. All right, now once you have that done, now what we're going to do is we're going to prime the left engine. So we're just going to go down here, and we're going to hit this primer 3 times. Okay, now once we have that done, we're going to yell clear, clear. Make sure nobody's around the propeller. We're going to turn the left fuel pump on. I forgot to turn on the battery. That's important. Turn on your battery. All right, now that that's on, we're going to turn the fuel pump on, and we're going to start the left engine. All right. Now once that engine's started, I'm going to turn off the fuel pump for the left engine. We're going to turn the right one on, prime that one 3 times, and then we're going to kick that right engine on. Okay, now once everything's up and running, got to turn that fuel pump back off. Now we're safe to turn on our avionics, so we can flip on the avionics. And of course, I've got my avionics switches here on my Honeycomb Alpha yoke, and we're going to turn our taxi and beacon. Beacon I should have actually turned on before I started the engines. My bad. Okay, now pretty close to getting rolling here. We're going to take off. I thought about contacting ATC, and Microsoft and Sobo are really working on improving ATC. It's still kind of lacking. A lot of times you'll go over to, get on the runway and you'll sit there forever and a day because, you've got aircraft coming and going. But Sobo is working on that, fans. So we're going to skip the whole dealing with ATC. By the way, if you want to, though, you can hit, by default, you hit your little tilde on the keyboard, and you can go here and you can, contact or tune in ATIS, which is basically for the weather. So if we go there and we listen to ATIS, it'll tell us like the standard pressure, what is the time, what is the wind. Obviously, if you're flying for real, it's critical information. You never skip that. So, and then of course once you're done with that, you can contact ground, and you can, we're going to be flying north, so you can say we're going to be traveling north, and then of course ATC will come back and say, all right, we're gonna go ahead and let you know how you need to taxi and what runway you're going to take off on. See your comment there, incredibly mad gaming, funny. Yes, so then you always got to acknowledge the taxi clearance, because if you don't do that, they get upset with you. And then you tune tower normally once you get to the runway, but we're going to skip ATC, but I just wanted to show that quick. All right. One last thing. I did put in the description I was going to use OnAir Company, and when I checked today, so the cool thing about OnAir Company is it's not static. It's like a living, breathing program that, like, it has a community of simmers like us, and there's always cargo that if I take the cargo and I would deliver it from San Diego to Santa Barbara, then another person that subscribed to OnAir Company wouldn't have that available to them. And I checked before this flight, and there wasn't any cargo from San Diego to Santa Barbara, that would fit in this plane. This plane's a small plane, so the cargo load isn't very much. I can't put much weight in here. I can't have more than 3 other passengers in here typically, and so so we're not going to do that. I'll show that really quick for those of you that come to see OnAir. But yeah, I do highly recommend it. It is subscription based, but as you can see, and there's different modes too. So if I go back to the lobby here, you have different modes like Thunder, and you have other ones that maybe are less restrictive and don't require you to fly as many. So if we go to Change World here, just show this really quick. So it has descriptions, and so some of them are like super easy. You have like no limit on money, and then as you would expect, very easy Cumulus. Then Stratus is moderate difficulty, and then Thunder, challenging, allowing virtual airlines. That's what VAs are. I'm doing Thunder. I like Thunder because it really is making me do pretty much everything, and I think that's a kind of a cool thing. So if you go in here, the first thing you have is you go to what aircraft. So these are the aircraft I have listed. And by the way, this works with both Microsoft Flight Simulator that we are using today. It works with X-Plane 11. It also works with Prepared 3D. I can't remember if it works with FS10, but I'm sorry, if you're still using FS10, stop. Go to Microsoft Flight Simulator, or go to X-Plane 11, if you have, the hardware. Now, if you don't have the hardware, okay, that's fine. But I'll tell you what, I think Microsoft Flight Simulator performs fairly well, even on minimum hardware. So you just got to turn the settings down, of course. So what you can do here is you can look at, for example, I need to turn that off, don't I? So we're just going to flip that over for our comms so we don't hear that anymore. But yeah, so if we're looking at this, here's the aircraft I have, and it has support for pretty much all the aircraft. You add your aircraft, you actually have to rent the aircraft, or you can buy the aircraft. And once you find what aircraft, like KSAN here, so we'll just take a look at this really quick. So if I go to KSAN, this little icon here will look for jobs that are available. So we can take a look at what jobs are in here, and so you can see you can change whatever you're trying to drill down to. So whatever criteria you want to search for, you can drill down to. So like here we're at KSAN, so it automatically puts that in, but we can change that if we want. And we can say from, and we can change our trip, distance. So 50 to 250, you can see all that. So you can really drill this down to what kind of flight do you want to fly, and what cargo do you want to fly. All right, Storm Wizard 1968, thank you. From the UK, thank you for joining. Appreciate you coming on the channel here for my first stream. Definitely appreciate it, thank you. So yeah, on the OnAir Company, this is a pretty cool utility, as you can see, but I didn't see, we can check again, Sim fans, if there's something available. So there's also 2, so if you want to just like say, all right, well, let's change this to Santa Barbara. And now we can see, well, what cargo do we have that needs, or passengers that need to be flown to Santa Barbara. Now that's our destination, so that's pretty much that. Now, if you were looking for, like, okay, I want to fly I know the airport that I'm leaving. I know the airport I want to go to. I want to do direct flight. You can do that in this program. You just have to go specific airport. So what it's going to do is if you type in your original airport or your origin, and then you can type in the ICAO code of Santa Barbara, which is KSBA, and then it says there Santa Barbara Municipal, and then you just hit query. And there isn't anything there. So if you have joined me today to look at OnAir, we're not actually going to be flying. There's no packages available for this aircraft. I do apologize because I was going to show, but that's pretty much the gist of it. But I'll do another flight in the future where I'll find some cargo and find a destination. I'll determine the destination of where we need to go and base the stream on that. The one other thing, too, I think is kind of cool that I want to point out. So let's just leave that as from. Let's query this again. Oh, you can change the airport size as well. I didn't mention that. And your max cargo, your passenger minimum, and your passenger limit. So do make a note of that. And so the one thing that's kind of cool is like if I don't want to fly this today, but let's say, this looks pretty cool. I might want to do this flight here from KSAN to KSLI. You can click on favorites, and then tomorrow, the next day, do be aware of the penalties though, because there's expiration dates on this stuff. But then I can just simply go to my favorites, and then there I will see. Oop, that's not the one. I've got a few favorites. There it is, and I see that. So I can go to that later and actually take it. Why, you might ask, why wouldn't you just take it? Well, that's fine. You can take it, but now the clock's running. So if you do take it and you don't get the cargo delivered in time, that's where the penalty comes into play. So, okay, so that's it of OnAir. Okay, before we burn all our fuel up, we better start taxiing. So we're going to taxi. By the way, cheers. Okay, we're going to taxi to runway 27. So here's the cool thing about the Bravo throttle quadrant I want to show you. So you can change everything. There's a mode selector that has, I've done a review of this, and you've probably seen it. Altitude, vertical speed, heading, course, and indicated airspeed. That's this knob right here. And you can up and down those settings with the dial over on the right here. So first off, we're going to go to runway 27. That's the one we're going to choose for today. It's usually the default one when it's light and variable wind. And so the first thing I like to do, and this is a tip for you, I like to set my heading bug indicator. And what does that mean? Okay, so this green indicator, that's your heading bug indicator. And so this is something that you can set. What I like to do is set to the runway heading, and a lot of times even in professional aviation with the airliners, they'll set the heading bug to the runway they're going to be taking off from. So I'm going to show you how you can do that in the Bravo throttle quadrant, which is kind of neat. So I'm going to switch my mode selector to heading. Now I can use this dial, see that green heading indicator, and I'll put it right due west. 270 is due west, right? So now I know the direction my nose should be pointing. That green heading indicator should be right on that orange line when I'm going to take off. If it's not, I'm on the wrong runway, fans. So nifty little tip there. So I set that. Oh, the other thing too, when you're using GPS, you want to change it from this localizer. Hit that CDI to GPS. Now you'll notice there's this magenta line. We're going to zoom out. So here's our route today. And by the way, I apologize. We might kind of hug the shoreline as we fly this because who wants to see a bunch of water? It's not, we're flying a Microsoft Flight Simulator. We should be seeing terrain. But that magenta line is our course line, okay? So if you ever wondered why isn't my aircraft following the darn GPS, I will guarantee, almost, that it's because you have it on localizer. You got to switch it to, you got to click that CDI button and change it to GPS. And once you do that, now when I hit the nav autopilot, it will follow that magenta course line. So, tip for you. I'm going to turn on our Garmin here for our transponder. That just tells ATC how high we are, where we're at, that sort of thing. You hear about squawking the code. We're 1200. We're flying a VFR flight today, fans, so we're going to be squawking 1200. Okay, now we got this set. One last thing, too, I'd like to point out. So this is the desired track. So what this is saying is it's 296 degrees. So think of a compass heading, from 360 all the way around, 180 being due south, right? 270 due west. So this is just saying where we need to go. Our desired track is 296. Now the next thing I'm going to do is I want to set my course line to that 296. Now, one thing about this aircraft I'll mention is when you saw it when I changed the heading bug. So I'm going to change my mode selector to course, and now I can change this. But notice it jumps by 10-degree increments. That's the one thing about this aircraft, that you actually have to use this dial here to get it to just go by individual. Now I think once I do that I can, nope, it still isn't, it's still going by 10. So I just kind of hold it until I get it to about where it needs to be. So that's pretty close. So now what I can tell is the runway and the heading bug, that green heading bug, I'm going to know before I even take off. Okay, I'm going to know before I take off that I'm going to have to take a slight turn to the right to intercept my course line. And then we're going to be heading basically northwest. Okay. Now that I got that set, one last thing, you want to set 1 notch of flaps. So here's my flap lever. Now I'm not going to manipulate this using the virtual cockpit because I've got this wonderful Bravo throttle quadrant. So I'm going to hit the flaps here, down one notch, and you'll notice it raises that lever up. By the way, I learned to fly in a Piper Warrior. It's a single engine, not a dual engine like the one we have here. But I kind of like that. I got used to it, and I like the throttle controls here as opposed to some of you may have flown a Cessna, and they've got the plunger, you know, that button plunger. It's like, give me a real throttle, right? So my heart's kind of set on Piper. I've flown Cessnas, they're great, but anyway. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. Now, one of the other things that's cool about the Bravo throttle quadrant, and you can't quite see it here, and I need to well, maybe you can see the little light. You can see that, right? Little parking brake light. I think you can see that. So that's illuminated. By the way, if you get the Bravo throttle quadrant, you do need to install a plugin to make it work with both X-Plane and Microsoft Flight Simulator for these indicators to work. You notice that the indicator for the gear, I've got 3 green. For all these lights to work, you have to add a plugin. I also have a video for that. Check it out. It'll show you how to do that. Okay, so we got 1 notch of flaps. I think we're ready, fans. I think we're ready to take off here. So let's go ahead and start taxiing. So I've got this switch for parking brakes. I got to turn my parking brake off. And before I forget, I'm going to close that. There's a bug in this aircraft. I think it's the aircraft, but let's hope it doesn't crash. Like the simulator will crash sometimes, and I think it's if I don't adjust the trim that I just adjusted. I go to take off, and even though I rotate it like 60, 70 knots like you should, Microsoft Flight Simulator, for whatever reason, detects it, and it says I overstressed the aircraft, and I know that's not the case. And then usually if you reload it and launch it again, then it doesn't have the problem. So it seems to be on the first takeoff for whatever reason. I don't know why. This is my first stream, and I do apologize for rambling, but I think it's kind of nice to know some of these. Oh, look at that. We're going to go over here. I think there's a bump right here, too. So this is where the... maybe not. Guess I put... Nope, there it is. Right there. So that's one of those things that hopefully Latin VFR will flatten out. You saw that the taxiway was flat, but yet it really wasn't. And so we're in the matrix. It's something that it's in the code, right? It's not in the visual, it's in the code. I did turn down the volume, so hopefully the volume's okay. Please let me know. Maddie's Creative Corner, thank you for the shout out there. Appreciate it. Thank you. Welcome to the stream. All right, we're going to take out the throttle. So now we're going to approach runway 27. So what if you remember what I mentioned about the green heading bug indicator? See, I can zoom in with my Trek IR. Isn't that cool? So notice it's just right off the right wing. So I know that's going to be good. So normally what we'd do is we'd call out to, well, we can go ahead and do that. There's not a bunch of traffic, so I'll call the tower and I'll request takeoff.
Tower Golf, Bravo Golf, Charlie Popper, ready for departure to the north at runway 27.
Golf, Bravo Golf, Charlie Popper, hold, short runway 27. Traffic is generic on upwind.
Okay. See, now they're telling me to hold short. Why are they telling me to hold short? Because there's traffic upwind, so they're off to the right. There they are. You see them? Okay, get off upwind. So I covered
19.6 United 2358.
I covered closed traffic before. So up.
Bravo Golf, Charlie Papa cleared for takeoff.
Oh, there we go.
27 departure to the north approved.
All right, we're clear for takeoff. Better turn on those lands, turn on the strobes, turn off the taxi light. Here we go. Let's take a look outside, and you can see. Got the strobes on. Got the landing light on. Nothing like doing that while you're trying to steer, right? Being outside. It's almost like flying a remote RC aircraft. Okay, let's hope, fans, that this doesn't crash. Okay? It happens to me about half the time. So if it does, we'll just reload and start again. So we're going to go full throttle. Make sure that our mixture and everything else is full. About 60 knots, we're going to begin rotating. Means bring the nose up. Alright, now watch, I'll put the gear up. Look at the LED indicators changing to red. Oh, just love that so much. And I know that many of you, you want the Honeycomb Bravo, and they're hard to get. And some people are paying quite a bit of money for them.
Departure. I will contact you next when you leave my airspace.
And then we can trim the nose down a little bit. And once you get about 400 feet above sea level, or above ground level, you take that last notch of flaps out, so you saw I did that. Now we're going to bank this aircraft to the right to intercept our course line. Going to put in a little bit more trim.
Golf Charlie Papa, you are leaving my airspace. Frequency change approved.
Frequency change approved. Okay, thank you.
Bird Tower Golf. Bravo Golf, Charlie Papa frequency change.
Yep, I see the aircraft right up there. And we're going to fly, so another thing I want to mention is when you're flying VFR, which VFR, by the way, stands for Visual Flight Rules, okay? IFR, Instrument Flight Rules. So all your commercial aircraft are going to be flying Instrument Flight Rules when when you're on those planes, like if you're on Delta, you're on American, Southwest, what have you, you're going to be on an IFR flight plan. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to engage the autopilot. But first, one thing I haven't done yet is you want to take out some of the RPMs and the throttle. So we're going to drop the RPMs to about 2,500. We're going to drop the manifold pressure to 2,500. We'll deal with the mixture here in a little bit, and I'll show you something here on this aircraft, what you want to do. But anyway, there's an acronym called ROLL. First, I'm going to turn on the autopilot. So if I turn on this autopilot, notice the indicator light turns on for autopilot, and then I'm going to hit nav, and there's going to be an LED that turns on for nav, and you see my aircraft is banking just ever so slightly to the right because I'm pretty close to that course line. There's beautiful California coast. All right. And I'm going to show you, we're going to kind of fly maybe the coast a little bit to see actual some scenery, so we're not just seeing nothing but water, ocean. Anyway, when you're flying a cardinal heading, so again, the acronym is ROLL. So ROLL stands for right odd, left even. What does that mean? Well, if you're going on a cardinal heading and you're going to the left, which would essentially be from degrees 180 to 359, you're on a left course. That means you need to fly even altitude. So 2,000, well, actually up to 3,000. I don't want to get into too much. But basically from 4,000 up, you want to be on even altitude. Plus 500 on visual flight rules. So you notice my altitude indicator's climbing pretty fast. And I'm going to switch over to altitude. So it's going to drop my nose down. So it's going to level off the airplane. And we're going to fly at 4,500 feet. We're just a little bit under that. And now I'm going to take out a little bit more manifold pressure. And also, I'm going to change the pitch of the props. I'm going to go down here, and EGT right here, I'd usually use that as an indicator to pull out mixture to see when, I've got, so I'm not burning and wasting as much fuel. See those levers go up? So I kind of think in the center. I don't know if this is right, to be honest, but I haven't had my aircraft go down in a fiery ball of flames yet, so I usually try to get those straight and level there. And then I know how I have my mixture. So as you can see, I've got my mixture probably about halfway out. My prop levers, they're probably about a quarter out, as is my throttle. So now we're at straight and level flight. We're not quite at 4,500, but we're on our way. We're on our way to Santa Barbara. Now, the other thing I want to show you is if I switch the heading. So now if I hit heading, that heading bug indicator goes straight, which is actually kind of nice because it keeps my aircraft going the direction I want it to go. It's not some aircraft that is different for it. It might automatically start turning wherever your heading bug is, right? So if your heading bug is to the left, it just immediately start turning left. Well, there's actually advantages to that too, especially when you're working with ATC, because they might say fly heading ... and then you can set that, or you might be on an approach where you dial in the heading beforehand, and then when you want your aircraft to start heading that way, you can switch to heading from nav. But anyway, so I'm on heading now. So notice my indicator is at heading. Oh, what did I forget to do? I forgot to do my mode indicator. So my mode indicator right now was on course. Notice my course line switched. Oops. Didn't mean to do that. Got to go to the heading mode, and now I can dial that to the right, and now my aircraft will start banking to the right, and we can go kind of by that coast. California coast, we're not flying away from it. The other thing, if you're X-plane, if you fly an X-plane, you know, again, check out Ortho4XP. That'll get you true satellite imagery, and you can actually choose Bing as your imagery provider, or you can choose Google. There are advantages and disadvantages for each. I just want to do a shout out to anyone that's MSFS or Microsoft Flight Simulator or X-plane lover. There's room for both of them. I love both simulators. There's usually it seems like there's always arguments on which one's better. So I'll just make a comment on that. There's room for both. I have both on my hard drive, and I fly both of them. I do all my VFR flight right now in Microsoft Flight Simulator because of the obvious. It's gorgeous, right? It's beautiful. But I do all of my IFR flights using X-plane. And the reason for that is Asobo's still catching up with what's called approaches and departures. And they're doing a good job. They are. I mean, and the thing I love about Asobo is that Microsoft is doing updates to this simulator constantly. As a matter of fact, I think there's a major update. I have a weekly top 5. Check that out. That's going to be coming out. That they're even improving the scenery in that even more than what they've been doing in terms of building structure and geometry. But yeah, Microsoft Flight Simulator is, of course, beautiful. We've all seen the trailers. We've been flying it. But where it isn't so great yet is the third party. It's got a ton of scenery. So, even though people are like, well, why would I pay money for scenery because it's already gorgeous? Well, that's true. But once you get really, really close to the ground, and again, this is something I talk about in the weekly top 5, so check that out. Top 5 announcements for Microsoft Flight Simulator. But when you get really close to the ground, it almost kind of looks like, depending on your settings, that some of the buildings in that are like destroyed, I guess, for lack of a better term. They're not really crisp and clean. Well, and that's the same for like a lot of the airports too. Microsoft Flight Simulator and Asobo, they use generic airport structures for their buildings. So when you buy like San Diego for Latin VFR, those are hand painted. Those are actually designed and built by basically artists and developers. So that's what you're paying for, and there's still a huge place for it, especially for airports that you fly to and from all the time, or maybe they're local to you, and you want that extra amount of detail. So there is, but where Microsoft is lacking a bit still on simulator is the third-party aircraft. There's no real study-level aircraft yet. X-plane has a lot of study-level aircraft and really good aircraft. Now, I have no doubt, that stuff takes time. It's easier to do scenery, and nothing against the scenery developers, but it's easier to do scenery than complex aircraft systems working with the Microsoft and Asobo flight model and all that. So there's a lot more to it. And so, as you can see, we have the Coronado. There's one that I'm really looking forward to is from Aerosoft, is the Canadian Regional Jet that's coming out, so look for that. I haven't gotten an update on when that's going to come out, but that is coming, so watch for that. But yeah, so IFR flight for procedures and aircraft, X-plane is still the one to go with. So I'll switch over to that and do that for IFR, but this for VFR. Oh, by the way, for you Chiefs fans, which I am, been ever since I was a young kid, and you know, if you are a Chiefs fan and you've lived through the pain of them making the playoffs a lot, even under Murray Schottenheimer, and then getting knocked out constantly, never making it to the big game. Last year was magnificent, and I'm hoping for another great year this year. We'll see. Still got to get past the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, but looking forward to that game tomorrow.
Lindbergh Tower, Skywest 3374, runway 27, ready for takeoff. IATMAR Tequila Hotel Delta, November.
Skywest 3374 cleared for takeoff runway 27.
Cleared for takeoff, runway 27, Skywest 3374.
So it looks like we have 8 watching right now. Thank you for joining me once again for the first stream. Didn't know how many people would be here, if I'd be alone or if I would actually have some. So again, appreciate everybody that's joined in. Really trying to build up my channel as many others are, and it's been fun. It's been a time-consuming hobby so far, but I think out of all my hobbies, I like this probably close to the best, if not the best so far, because I'm helping, at least I'd like to think I'm helping a lot of the simmers out there with this. So, Maddie's Creative Corner, thank you for the question. How long is the flight? Well, this flight is, yeah, thank you, Maddie. I should have mentioned that. This is, I think it was about an hour and 15-minute flight. So, we could speed it up. You know, if we can do a rate, what in Microsoft Flight Simulator, I had another watcher ask this question before as well. Can you speed it up? And yes, there is a way to do that. I think by default it's the R key and either the plus or minus, and you can go in increments of 2x. So you go 2 times, 4 times, and it goes up to 8 times speed. So that'll get you there 8 times as fast, of course. But then once you hit that 8x, you can't go any farther than that. X-Plane, I believe you can go up to 16 for changing the sim rate. Also, if you're interested, you can look at your GPS as well, and that'll show you how much time's left in this flight. So right here it says 56 minutes. So I talked probably too much before we got up in the air, so the stream will probably go a little longer than I anticipated. I anticipated about an hour and a half, but that's okay. So notice one thing I'll show here is way off course of the magenta line. Why do you suppose that is? Anybody guess? Anybody want to put in chat why we're off course, fans? Incredibly mad. Yeah. When will the in-flight meal be served? Yeah. Soon, my friend. Soon. Again, we will be serving a virtual TV dinner, if you will. Nothing but the best. We'll upgrade that when we're in a bigger plane, and maybe a virtual craft beer. By the way, I am having a Dogfish Head 60-minute IPA. If you can see that, I'm a hophead, if you will. I said hop, okay? Enunciate that clearly. Hophead. And yes, that's a great beer. I love the Dogfish Head. If you haven't had it and you like IPAs, give it a try. Heading bug, yes, incredibly Meg Gaming. You were paying attention, sir. That is exactly right. That is the right answer. And yes, so as you can see, our heading bug is still set at just past 330, almost due north. Like you can see, we're flying on the GPS here, and that is exactly why we are off course. So now my next question is, how can we get back on course? Anybody want to take a crack at that question?
Delta 701 cleared for takeoff runway 27.
Well, somebody's got to know this answer. By the way, there's about a 15-second delay between when I'm talking and you're seeing on YouTube. I don't know what master you're talking about, Incredibly Meta Gaming, but hey, appreciate it. So to get back on course, all we have to do, fans, really super simple. So here again, we've got the Bravo throttle quadrant. All I got to do is hit this nav button, and we're going to bank to the left. I'm going to hit that. Notice the LED light comes on, and the aircraft, look, Mom, no hands. Aircraft is going to bank to the left. It's going to get us back to that magenta line. Again, that magenta line is... hey, if we start crashing, I did bring my parachute, unfortunately. But that, yeah, if we go back to our course line, again, that's that magenta line. Right here, right in that corner there. And so the aircraft is going to steer us at approximately a 45 degree angle, pretty close to a 45 degree angle to intercept that course line there. So if we want to zoom all the way out here, there's Santa Barbara. And I'm out as far as I can go. I'm not going to cover airspace right now. You know, I might have, maybe in a future stream or a video, I might cover kind of like real pilot, you know, real life piloting in flight simming, and then like kind of go over some of the more details of like what's class Charlie, Charlie airspace, Bravo airspace, Echo airspace, and ground airspace. And kind of go over like what these lines are. I have to tell a story really quick. When my wife and I were flying to a wedding, we were heading back to Ames. We live in Iowa, and we were going through Cedar Rapids airspace, and I neglected as a pilot to tell her, and that's one of the things as a pilot your responsibility to do is keep, you know, inform your passengers, and I neglected to tell her this. I told her that I had a problem with my radio. I could receive and I could hear from Cedar Rapids air traffic control, but I couldn't transmit. Something was wrong with the transponder of the aircraft. And, you know, I was using one of the rental ones that I had learned on, and I did have my private, so that's why I was able to have her as a passenger. But the transmitter wasn't receiving, and so I told her, I said, oh yeah, having a radio problem, I can't talk to ATC. So you squawk a specific code that tells ATC that you can't communicate, and I told her that, and I just squawked it, and of course meanwhile I didn't say, oh, it's fine, it's nothing to worry about, you know, we're not gonna crash, it's just radio communication. We just squawk the code. The air traffic controllers can look at the code and say, oh yep, the aircraft can't transmit, so that's why they're not responding, but they hear me. Or maybe they don't hear me, but in any case, it shows ATC. And so I had to divert and fly around that airspace. Another quick story, too, on the real pilot stuff. Here we got another question here. In real life, how big of a deal is getting off your course? Not a big deal. Incredibly Meta Gaming, good question. It's not a big deal as long as you are on VFR rules. Now, where that would be a big deal is if you're on an IFR flight plan. It's called a flight plan. You're in constant, when you do an instrument flight rules, our IFR flight plan, you're in constant contact with ATC. Then it is a big deal to go off course. And they'll usually say something to you that you're off course, you need to fly heading ... and intercept your course. But that's the beauty of visual flight rules, VFR, which we're doing today, is you can essentially fly wherever you want. But the important thing is you got to pay attention to the traffic outside. So you're always doing a scan, looking out the cockpit window, making sure you're seeing other aircraft. So then probably the next question that you're all wondering is, well, what about when I'm flying on a commercial airline? How does that work? You know, you've got all these yo-yos out there that are flying VFR flights. How do I know that I'm not going to get hit by one of those planes? And it's happened, you know, back in the 70s, I think, in California, and maybe even the 80s. But ATC is really good about routing your commercial airplane to avoid that traffic, and even farther than ATC. All commercial aircraft I'm pretty sure this is accurate. All commercial aircraft have basically traffic collision avoidance, or TCAS. So TCAS I think it's traffic collision avoidance system, and what it'll do is it's actually an audible voice in the pilot's ears. If there's an airplane, like if I was about to hit one of the airliners, it would say, "Caution, traffic, traffic." You know, and many of you that are flight sim fans, you've flown some of those planes, you hear that, and so that protects you in real life from, you know, some of these other aircraft that don't have those systems and they're just under VFR rules. So, for what it's worth, you know, I think everybody flies, so tidbits. Good question. Thank you for that, Incredibly Mad Gaming. So we're not even quite back on our course yet, but we're getting close. SXC. That's kind of a neat airport to fly into. I think that's a military airport, but you see this island out here? Right ahead there. There's a military airport there, runway. That's kind of a fun one to go fly into. Yeah, so that's another benefit, right? When you're simming, you can drink craft beer. Yeah, correct. Yeah, no drinking while flying, but you definitely can while simming. I'm sure my wife would agree. Maybe not. Yeah, we're gonna fly right over. Well, let's see. We're not going to fly over the island, but we're going to fly next to it. Because as soon as we intercept, because we're on the nav mode, autopilot, once we hit that magenta line, we're going to start banking back to the right to go to Santa Barbara. Let me see if I can't pull up another window here and talk about aircraft or airport charts if you're interested. So I mentioned this in another video that AirNav is really kind of cool. Let's see if I can get it added here to OBS. Hopefully you can all see that. So I really like AirNav because it's free for one. So if you're a simmer, this is one of the tools that you should have in your toolbox, no doubt about it. By the way, I didn't use SimToolKit Pro, amazing, and it's free, and they should be charging for it in my opinion, but God bless them because they provide it for free. And it's got like all these charts as well, but you know, it's pretty robust. There's also another utility called Project Fly. So for you simmers out there that are watching, check those tools out. They're nifty. But I like airnav.com because it's just easy to type in an airport. So you type in the ICAO code. So KSBA is Santa Barbara, and the nice thing about this is we can see critical information like elevation. You know. So, you know, when you're setting your altimeter, what's called an altimeter. What's an altimeter? Well, an altimeter is this gauge right here. And I apologize for those of you that are seasoned veteran simmers or pilots, because this is something that's obvious, but I want to cater to everybody. So if I change this there's pressure altitude here, and you probably heard that all, you know, you could probably hear that all the time, like barometric pressure. So essentially, when you're flying, it's super, super critical that you constantly update this. Why is that? Well, look at what happens. If I say, okay, it's a low temperature, look at my aircraft. It says that I'm at 4,400 feet when I'm actually at 4,500. So actually, that's the better way to be inaccurate. But where some pilots in real life get into trouble is if they haven't adjusted their altimeter and it's too high. So look at this. Right now it says we're at 4,600. So if I'm flying an approach, and I might be coming into mountain, you know, terrain areas, hills, you know, whatnot. If I think I'm 100 feet above where I really am, that's a problem, right? So you always want to make sure, and we have standard pressure. Standard pressure is 29.92. I'll go back to, oh, I'm sorry. I had, you couldn't see any of that. My apologies. I'm a noob. What can I say? So let me do that again here quick so you can actually see what I'm talking about. So this is what I was adjusting. So this is the altimeter, and so that's going to show you essentially, like, if every time you contact ATC, like if you're in air traffic route control, if you're contacting tower and approach, departure, they're going to tell you like the latest barometric pressure. It is a super critical piece of information for anyone that's flying, and because of what I just said. So yeah, anyway, I'm getting off track here. Oh, look, we're banking. Yay, we're getting back online. I bet we're getting on a course line, fans. Oh yeah, there it is. There's a magenta line. We're getting back on track here. All right. But yeah, I like AirNav because it has all that, you know, that information pertinent to the airport that you're coming into. So it also has like ATIS, again, remember, that's where we got the weather. It has your airport diagram. So all this is free. So if I go into this, zoom in here, now I can tell just at a glance of what runways we have here at Santa Barbara. So it'll tell you where your general aviation is, and I like to rotate this, so I'm looking at it in terms of like 15 right, 15 left. Of course, that's going southeast, and then we have runway 7, which is almost going directly to the east, and 25, which is almost going directly to the west. It shows our taxiways, Alpha, Echo, all those, and we're going to fly in it on 25. That's our plan. We're going to basically do a straight in approach on 25 when we get to Santa Barbara. But yeah, this is a nifty tool. So of course you can see your dimensions of your runway, how long it is, how wide it is, which runways, and then you also get your instrument approach procedures. So if we download this, I'm not going to go over this today. Don't worry. I believe probably many of you would not want to see that. Mark Bland, welcome to the stream. Thank you for joining. Yeah, and so we'll go over this later, but you see this is 075 degrees, so that would be your approach for runway 7, right? There it is, ILS or localizer on runway 7. So check out airnav.com if you like to sim. It's free, it's great. So let's see, we got some chat here. Let me see here. So, Mark, you asked, when you were training to get your pilot's license, do you use flight sim software like MSFS to practice or train? Oh, yeah. Good question. Actually, the developer of X-Plane, and I was a big X-Plane fan at the time because, as some of you know, sorry about the box here, by the way. It's going to go away once I get my box light, hopefully, the box that surround me, my green screen, because the light's changing from the outside. I've got a light on the side here, and it changes it. Anyway. But yeah, X-Plane, the developer, Austin, oh my gosh, I just lost his last name. Austin, oh shoot, I'm missing it. How bad is that? I want to say Meyer, but anyway, he's actually a graduate of Iowa State University, and he wanted to create a simulator to practice instrument approaches because there was nothing out there. I mean, at the time it was Microsoft. Well, before Microsoft took it, it was SubLogic, and that was back in the old Commodore 64 and Commodore 128 days. And yeah, so that was he wanted to be able to fly instrument approaches just like looking at at the gauges and dials, you know, all of this stuff here, not looking out the window. Which, by the way, when I was training for my private pilot's license, you have to do what's called under the hood. You have to show that you can control bank, climb, and descend under a hood that basically shields you from being able to see out up over the dashboard, and so you can't use that horizon line. And truthfully, it's quite the experience because you feel like when you start turning, and then when you go straight and level, you feel like you're turning the opposite direction. And there's medical reasons for that. But so yeah, I used it for a great question. I used it for training, and I think it did help. I actually had my instructor when I was doing landings initially and takeoffs made comments of like that I had really smooth approaches and landings and that. And I did have to attribute that. I had probably thousands of hours in flight simming. And I know that some of you out there might be interested in flight simming. And so it is something that, or real flight, not just flight simming, but real flight. And it is something that can help you with that. So great question. Appreciate that question. So Incredibly Mad Gaming, Die Hard 2 had a scene regarding the altimeter not being accurate. It didn't end well for them. I don't remember that. I'll have to go back and watch that. Yes, yes indeed. So there's the island. I don't know if I can zoom in and see the runway here. Yeah, right there. Can only zoom in so far, but you can see it right there. So if we look at our GPS, there's SXC, Sierra X-Ray Charlie. 39 minutes away. We're getting there, fans. We're getting there. Please appreciate you all coming and flying with me today. This is great. So all of you tell me a little bit about yourselves. You know, what do you like to fly in real life? Do you like to sim? I know Incredibly Mad, you say you don't like to, you don't sim, but you know, some people love to fly. Some people are very afraid of flying. It is, you know, you've heard it a million times. It's the safest form of travel. I honestly, truly believe that inside and out. If you think of how many flights are done every single day across the world, and I wish I had the statistic, but you can Google it, and you always hear of when there is, you typically hear of when there's an accident, especially if it's a commercial flight, and just to see the, you know, the logistics of what it takes for all of these flights across the world to go to go from point A to point B, it's incredibly amazing. It's incredibly safe. So it's nothing that you know should be afraid of. And most of the time when there are problems with any aircraft, usually they're not a critical failure. The aircraft that we're all flying in these days have multiple backup systems. They have redundancy so that, you know, if there's a failure in one system, there's a backup system. And even general aviation aircraft like we're flying, you know, here, you know, all the aircraft are required to go through an inspection, like, you know, 100 or 200 hour inspection, depending on what they're being used for. And every so often they have to go through a whole tear down and rebuild, especially the commercial aircraft. So everything is checked, double checked, triple checked, and that's really you know, hats off to all the mechanics and the people out in the world that do that. Look at that reflection. Isn't that gorgeous? Ah, just love it. Yeah, Mark, I really enjoy flying. It's been several years, but hope to fly commercial again before too long. Nice. Hopefully going somewhere fun. You know, this whole COVID pandemic stuff, you know, obviously there's been a lot of questions about that as well, right? Flying with the virus being, you know, easily transmitted through the air. I don't want to say it's safe, and I'm surely no doctor, so I'm not even going to go there, but let's just put it this way. There's more dangerous things to do than flying in terms of being susceptible to that virus. At least what the doctors say and what they say. But certainly not as safe as just staying home and being distant from people. Let's see, do we have enough fuel to get there? I think we do. This is the other thing where we're in this flight here. You know, Microsoft adds these dials. You can see your compass and your airspeed and your engine, your RPMs, your prop pitch, and your fuel and your angle. AOA, by the way, is angle of attack. So we're just level flight right here, 0 degrees. No angle of attack. So maybe just really quick talk about what these gauges mean. Or I could just shut up and we could just fly and appreciate the ocean. I'll have to pick a better route next time. I apologize. I should have picked a better route to fly than over the ocean here. It's gonna kind of hug the shoreline there, but if you're interested, I might just cover what these gauges are. So you might, and again, flight sim fans, you know this. But these gauges, you know, what are these? So, of course, you have your airspeed indicator right here. And you notice there's yellow and then there's red. So, and then there's green. There's this green arc. And then here you have no arc. What does that mean? That means bad. It means you're going to fall out of the sky. This here in the green is all safe. The yellow is safe as long as you don't have any major turbulence. And again, if you get up to this point, you're going to be stressing the aircraft and you're going to start having your wings tear off, maybe your vertical stabilizer tear off, other major problems. So you just basically, as long as you have stable, clear air, very little to no turbulence, you can go all the way through this whole arc here. So here there's this red line. If you go below that, so even if you're a flight sim fan, you know this, but if you don't know this, I don't know how much is obvious all the time, but you go under that, what's going to happen is you're going to stall, and your aircraft is going to go nose down. Most aircraft will go nose down. You might enter a spin, and you want to get your airspeed up to get out of that stall so you're not plummeting to the earth. But, you know, you hear of aircraft stalling even when they're within this arc. How does that happen? And it's back to this angle of attack. So there's red boxes here, and what happens is if you go too fast, or if I were like to take the throttle here and just yank it up, right? Just yank it up. I could go over the threshold where the wind that's going. So this is my shirt, by the way. This is you can see that, but it's basically wind flow over an airfoil, right? So it's showing Bernoulli's principle. I wasn't trying to flash you there, but so that generates lift, right? And so you know when you're flying straight and level here, we've got wind that's going underneath the wing, and we got wind that's traveling over top of the wing. And so the wing is actually designed at an angle, as you know. But the reason for that is the wind that's traveling over top of that wing has to travel faster to meet up with the wind that's going below the wing. What does that do? Well, simply that generates lift. There's less pressure above the wing, which causes your aircraft to climb. Now, when you change the angle of attack, what you're doing is you're actually creating more wind that's going over top of that wing at that angle of attack that's generating even more lift, which is why you can climb, not just stay steady and level, and you're actually gaining altitude, and that generates more lift when you increase that angle of attack. But there is a what's called a critical angle of attack. I think I got that right, where the air no longer is smooth going over top of that wing, and it starts, you know, going in different directions. It isn't smooth air, essentially, and what happens is you don't get the lift anymore. So what happens? Your nose goes down, your plane drops, and if it's engineered right, it should drop and nose down so that you can then get smooth air back over that wing and generate lift again so you can pull your aircraft up. Another story on when flying for real, I had a buddy of mine that was flying with me, and we were coming from Clear Lake to Ames, and I was demonstrating a stall for him, and I asked him, I said, well, you know, do you want to do a stall? So I explained what it was. You know, I didn't want to freak him out. You know, he's a passenger, and he liked flying, but I didn't want to freak him out. He'd never been in a small aircraft, and if you've never been in a small general aviation aircraft, it is quite the experience. Like, the first time you go and sit in and you see all the controls and the gauges right in front of your face, and you look back and there's not much room, it can be a little intimidating. But don't let it be. But it is. And so I was telling them, I was explaining what a stall is, and I was basically, what the topic was, what did I have to do to get my pilot's license? And I told them I had to demonstrate what's called power on stalls and power off stalls. And so the power on stall is when you have the engine full and you go over that critical angle of attack and you start buffeting, and then you stall with your engines full. That's kind of a dangerous scenario because it really can cause your plane by torque to spin around and enter a spin. Why you use those and why you practice those as a pilot is because it's basically demonstrating when you take off from a runway, some pilots might get distracted, or it might be IFR conditions like we talked about, and you have that angle of attack too sharp, too steep, and the plane starts stalling even though you have your engines at full, your throttles at full. That's probably one of the worst types of stalls that you can enter into because of the fact of the torque, and it can get you into a spin. The other one to practice is a power off stall, and what that is when it's simulating when you're coming in for approach, which we're going to be coming into 2.5 here in roughly half an hour. And when you're coming to land at a runway, you're going to pull your throttle out. And so what it's demonstrating is if you're coming in for a landing and you end up not paying attention because you're looking at maybe your GPS, maybe you're looking at an airport chart, you should be looking out in front of you, but maybe you're just not paying attention to your airspeed, and it drops below and you enter a stall, kind of like we looked at with the airspeed indicator here on that red line. So, but anyway, I was talking to my buddy about this, and I said, do you want to do a stall? I said, it's safe. I think we're at like 5,500 feet or something like that above ground. And I said, it's safe. There's no danger, but I don't want to do it if you don't want to. He goes, yeah, let's do it. So I decided I'll go ahead and do it, but I thought I'll not enter a complete power off. Just doing a power off stall. I'm not going to enter a complete power off stall. So I pull the throttle back, I throw the notches of flaps in, and I gradually pull it up, and the plane starts buffeting, and then of course the most alarming thing is you have the stall horn. It goes and it's making an obnoxious loud noise, so it's going off, and then I drop the nose down, put full throttle in as you should, and then climb back out, and I asked him, I go, how was that? And he looked at me. Of course, I only did about a half a stall, right? And he's like, oh, that's pretty cool, And I'm like, okay, do you want to do a real stall now? And he says, oh, that wasn't a real stall? I go, no. He goes, yeah. So this time I did it, and I pulled the throttle all the way out, and I pulled that yoke as far back as I could pull it. And I mean, the nose is up, and it's buffeting, and the stall warning is going crazy, and the nose just drops down to the earth, and I see him kind of up in his chair because we're falling to the ground. And then, of course, I add throttle, I pull out, we're fine. And he's kind of laughing, and I look at him, and I said, so how was that? He goes, oh, that was awesome. And I said, do you want to do it again? He goes, no. So, anyway. The joys of flying. Oh, welcome SimFanatic wife. I like the handle, hun. Yeah. Can't wait to fly again, hopefully soon and somewhere tropical. Oh, wouldn't that be nice? We'll have to figure out a place to go. Then Mark, you mentioned, yeah, definitely done with the snow. Yeah, I think we're all ready to be done with that for sure. Incredibly Mad Gaming, how does flight sim software handle things like stalling? Do they do a good job simulating what happens in real life? Another great question. Appreciate all those questions. Yeah, actually, it depends, I guess, is the answer to that question. It depends actually on the aircraft. So really, it's not so much on the simulator obviously has a big thing to do with it because it's the environment you're in, right? The sandbox you're in. And you know, the engine, if you will, of the game. And so that definitely has a big part of it, but it also depends on, you know, the aircraft developers. Are they doing true to life for the, you know, the airfoils, the forces on the plane, different forces, whether it's thrust, drag, lift, or gravity. So four forces of aerodynamics on an aircraft. And so, you know, it just depends on the developer, really. So that's one big thing with the stalls. So you can have, so for example, in this aircraft here, I could certainly demonstrate a stall if you want. Let's go ahead and do that. I'll do that. So if you're to demonstrate this, because we gotta have some fun, because we're kind of just over boring ocean, right? So let's go ahead and demonstrate what's called a power on stall. So you pretty much will set up for a power on stall. What you'll do is you'll simulate kind of like if you were taking off, right? So 4,500 feet, we're good enough on the altitude. I'm going to turn off the autopilot, so you notice now we can fly it. So what you'll do in a power on stall is, like, normally you'd either have one notch of flaps in or no notch of, you know, zero flaps in. I'm not going to put that in, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to full throttle. I'm going to pull back, and you're going to gradually pull back, and now watch the airspeed indicator. Watch the game crash. I'll overstress the airplane. So now watch. So you try to keep the nose straight up. See that? So now, so like this, like look at that. So now we're kind of in a dive. So now I'm looking at my horizontal indicator. Now I want to take that out. And come back to my, now when you do it over the ocean, look at that, we were down to 2,000 feet. So, by the way, that horn was just because of my landing gear. So we actually rotated and flipped around. We actually entered a spin. I honestly don't know if that is going to, I don't know how accurate that is, right? In real life, I've never flown an actual Piper Seminole. I mean, I've done a Warrior. That seemed to be a pretty aggressive stall, but you know, it's kind of neat. But you know, the one thing is, like, everything went blue, as you notice. So when you're taught as a pilot, we need to climb. What you're taught as a pilot is you got to watch this gauge right here. This is our attitude indicator. So the only way I knew, like, I was down because of blue sky and blue ocean, is I looked at this, and this just think of this as Earth and this is sky. So I really cued in on that to be able to know if I was climbing or descending, because I had no reference point. Like when you're over land, I guess that's a good way to demonstrate, like, instrument flight rules, is like when you're over land, you have a real horizon. This here in the attitude indicator is what's called an artificial horizon, and I really had to zero in on that to get my plane oriented, because I had no idea if I was looking at the sky or looking at the ocean. I did know, though, because I saw as you probably saw, I was losing altitude really fast. I was losing my altitude indicator. This is your vertical speed indicator. So notice right now it's at a 1. So that means we're climbing. This is by hundreds of feet. So we're climbing at 1,000 feet right now to get back up to 4,500. But that is a power on stall. So hopefully you enjoyed that. Now, if you do a power off stall, now I'm going to climb before we do that. That's pretty important that you do that, right? Let's go ahead and hit the autopilot back on. I want to show the vertical speed. So if I hit that, and I can bring that up again, I keep forgetting this. I got to put my mode selector at vertical speed, and once you do that, fans, you can then climb back up. So we'll climb back up to 4,500 feet, which you'd normally do before going into any kind of stall situation. And of course, you know, in real life, you'd also bank 180, make sure there's no aircraft around you. You know, what's called clear the area. So you'd bank left and then go back to your course before you enter a stall, because you just don't want somebody that's like below you or, you know, or by you that would you could potentially run into. Oh, you're welcome for that demonstration. Yeah, that in real life, it's pretty fun. It's pretty fun. I didn't do that crazy of a stall, even in a full stall with my buddy. I mean, we didn't invert and go bank over and go into a spin or anything, but not that that was a full spin, but it was a pretty aggressive stall there. But I thought it would be fun to do to show you. So we're gonna hit altitude, and now notice the vertical speed goes back to altitude. And we're at level flight again. All right, now I'm going to show you what a power off stall would be. So power off stall again would be is if it's simulating you're going in to land at an airport. So to set up for a power off stall, you just slow down like you're going to be landing. So I'm going to pull the power out. Well, sorry about that if that's blowing your eardrums. I didn't want to get... If I go below, much below... certain RPMs, it'll start doing that. About 1300 here. So what we're going to do is we're going to slow down. Now I'm actually going to put the landing gear down. Okay, we got the landing gear locked. Watch this. Green light, 2 green, all 3 green, right? That means all your aircraft are locked. Or your aircraft. Jeez, all your landing gear are locked. Okay, so now we're slowing down. So notice we're at 100, so we're going to put a notch of flaps in. Let's keep slowing down. Put another notch of flaps in. I'm going to turn the autopilot off. Put a last notch of flaps in. How do we know? We have all the flaps. We got the lever all the way up. Now we're just going to pull all that out, and I'm going to start pitching up. Now watch the airspeed indicator. Now we're at like 60. Going to keep pulling that nose back, nose back. There it goes. There's the stall warn. Look at that. See it drop down? So you got to get that airspeed back up and then just lift it back up. So full throttle. Pull the nose back up. Put the gear up. You got to get this trim back out. Oh boy, hopefully that doesn't continue. Oh, I might have just discovered a bug. You gotta be kidding me. That warning should be going off right now, or that should stop. Maybe I messed up the landing gear. I don't know. Shouldn't have. I think I discovered a bug, fans. I think I found a bug in the aircraft. I might have to. Oh wait. No, I know what it was. I didn't pull my flaps back out. That's why. Okay, let's get back on course. My bad. My bad. So anyway, that's the demonstration for power on and power off stalls. Yeah, I forgot one of the critical things. You got to pull your flaps back up. I didn't do that. That's why it was barking at me. Rightfully so. I did not find a bug in the aircraft. I found a bug in my piloting. All right, let's get this back around here. And we're going to go ahead and switch it back to autopilot. We're going to go nav. What are we at? We're at 5,000. I kind of a little bit high. All right, well, that's okay, because we're going to demonstrate descending with the indicated or the vertical speed knob. So if we look, so what I'm looking at here, fans, is this VS -6. That's in hundreds of feet. So as I do this dial up or down, you can see there I'm going at different rates of descent. So we'll just let that bring us back down to 4,500 feet. Well, we're getting close. We're only roughly 19 minutes away from approach and landing. So do appreciate everybody sticking around with me. Hopefully learning a thing or two. And I certainly did. Learned that I got to remember to put my flaps back up after doing a stall. Okay, altitude. Bring that nose back up. Now we're back flight. We're back in level. Question from Incredibly Mad Gaming. What's the worst weather you've flown in before? That's a good question. I'm glad you asked that, because I'm not actually instrument rated, so I haven't been through really too bad of weather. Pull some of the RPMs out. So if you're not instrument rated, you should. What that means is if you're you get your private pilot's license, and you can fly VFR. So what VFR is this: visual flight rules, which means I can navigate using my eyes. To fly in like inclement weather, like foggy, or now you can still fly in rain. So I've flown in rain before. Matter of fact, I was mentioning my wife and I went to that wedding. We actually flew through some rain, but the clouds were high enough and it was clear, I could see. So visual flight rules, you have to have at least 3 statute miles of visibility, and you have to be at least 500 feet either below or above the tops of the clouds, or 1,000 feet horizontally away from a cloud. So you can't fly in fog, you can't fly through the clouds, you got to stay away from the clouds, because you're scanning with your eyes, you're making sure that you're not going to hit some other aircraft, and you're not going to get the aircraft disoriented, and so, but I did study. I took my what's called CFI, and for my instrument rating and certified flight instructor, I did a CFII. I'm sorry, I was at the time planning on being an instructor, and worked on my instrument rating. So I actually took both of those exams, passed, and then I got into a band. I played the drums, and another one of my hobbies. Just ask my wife. And I got really into this band, and so I let the written test for the instrument only, I think it's a calendar year. You have to get your aeronautical stuff, which I had planned on doing, getting the aeronautical training in, which I did do training on that, but I didn't get it done in time because I got into this band and got sidetracked and did that. And so I still plan on doing that someday, but yeah, so good question. I haven't really been in bad weather flying myself. Now, that's not to say you should always be prepared, because as we all know, weather can change in an instant. So that's one of the things that they teach you when you're going through flight training, is what happens if you do get into a bad situation where you get into inclement weather, like you get into clouds or you get into a thunderstorm and that sort of thing. So yeah, good question. Not bad weather, fortunately, and hopefully never will. So we still should have plenty of fuel. Burn some extra fuel doing the power on stalls, and we burn a little extra fuel going along the coastline. So Flight Simulator actually does, what it does is it'll determine like how much fuel do you need for the flight that you load, and it'll put that much fuel in your tanks. Keep that in mind. Now, of course, you can add fuel or decrease fuel depending on what you want to do in terms of what flight you want to do. But do keep that in mind, because it's kind of think about that. Like, well, yeah, we went kind of north, and then we did the power on stall and Boy, wouldn't that be a way to end my stream of running out of fuel and crashing into the ocean. Wow, that would be so amazing. Epic. But we should have plenty of fuel. We've only got another 15 minutes or so, so. Yes, another question, good question. Does MS Flight Sim simulate weather well? Yes, it actually does. One of the big things about Microsoft Flight Simulator is that it'll actually calculate even wind off of a mountain, you know, and just unprecedented. I can't remember the number. It's like, I think it's like several hundred calculations of force of air and wind across all these, a bunch of surfaces. And they kind of took that from X-Plane. X-Plane's been doing that for a while. But, you know, you can see some videos out there that'll show you like these lines of lift. That'd be green, and red as gravity, and drag is red, you know, from the aircraft, and then green forward for thrust. But they'll take those same aerodynamic forces and apply them to weather. So it does a pretty good job with thunderstorms and things like that. Pretty cool stuff. I'll have to do that. You made me think of a good idea. I should do a flight in inclement weather with thunderstorms, and you can see like how it really rocks the aircraft back and forth. Yeah, one major rule that you learn really quick when you go to flight school is you always avoid thunderstorms. Like the old adage, it's like it's better to not push yourself and go. If you think you're going to make it, there's like, you know, possible thunderstorms around, or you see, well, I can get up there and get around them. And a lot of times that can be true, but it's something that you should just avoid. Like the old adage says, is like it's better to be on the ground wishing you were flying than the other way around. Never want to be in a situation where you're in the air and you wish you wish you were on the ground, right? Yeah. Good stuff. Appreciate all the questions. I've done that many times, Incredibly Meta Gaming. Yeah, I'll do that. Actually, there's a payware version of St. Martin that I have purchased. I have been meaning to do a review of it. I haven't done a review of it yet, so I'll definitely do that. Good idea. Appreciate that very much. Very, very much. Well, we're getting close to our destination. Take a look here at our GPS. We're only 13 minutes away. We're going at, by the way, this is 143 knots ground speed. We're tracking right where we want to be. Desired track is at 294, and we're tracking 294. Our distance is 30.6 nautical miles. So yeah, we're gonna be landing here soon. Yes, it's the PG version. It's the PG version. Yes, oh yeah, St. Martin. That's quite the. I always wanted to go there. Hey, I think that's somewhere maybe we could go. Tropical area. I know my wife mentioned something about a tropical location. That'd be cool. Be expensive too, right? I don't know what tickets. Anyone know how much tickets are to fly to St. Martin? It's got to be expensive. Although right now it probably isn't. You can get some incredible deals on tickets. And we were looking at like our daughter going to Florida, and I think the round trip tickets on, what was it, Frontier? Maybe SimFanatic wife can put in how much it was if she's still on here. But yeah, it was like $100 or something like that for, I might be wrong on that, but like for a round trip ticket to Orlando. Yep, thank you, Incredibly Matt. Yes, they tend to be topless there. Indeed. Not really a family-oriented beach. I'd just love to go there just to watch the aircraft fly over your head and land, or them take off, although I think some people are being crazy. They're standing right at the fence line there behind the jets. I think it would hurt. There'd be like all that sand that would be hitting you, and check out some videos if you haven't. Do St. Martin. It's TNCM is the ICAO code. TNCM. But yeah, St. Martin is... that's cool. Yeah, it's cool. I mean, you could be right on the beach and have aircraft fly right over your head, and then people will go up to the fence line, and you'll have like a 747 with all 4 jet engines full thrust as it gets ready to take off with all wheels locked, you know, to get that thrust up full and then take off. I would think that would hurt. You'd have sand and debris hitting you and hitting your legs. You even see people like actually blowing back into the ocean. And there's like danger signs all over the fence line. Yeah, if you haven't seen that, go YouTube it and check it out. It's pretty funny. It's pretty amazing. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about approach. And so for those of you that, you know, aren't simulator fanatics, which is fine, that's great, good to have you here. But those that are simulator enthusiasts, and you may know this, but you always kind of want to think out your approach and your descent. Now, when you're flying like the 737 or the Airbus or any of the commercial aircraft, they have what's called a flight management system. And so you plug in stuff in your flight management computer, or FMC for short, and it will fly the plane all the way on approach to your descent and everything. I mean, you got to change your altitude bugs and all that, but it'll essentially fly you to basically on final, and then you disable autopilot and you land the aircraft. And some of them you can land all the way. But for general aviation, you know, you may have that kind of system, but a lot of times you don't, especially like an aircraft like this, that's why I wanted to fly this one. It's a very simple aircraft, and it's easy to fly, easy to use, it's easy to learn on. There's certainly even easier aircraft, but I thought this is a good one to fly. And I'll introduce some other aircraft here in the future, within the next week or two. I've got some other payware aircraft I'd like to show you, and I've been doing a lot of videos on this one. But anyway, you want to kind of start calculating in your head or in a calculator of like what's called your descent profile. So getting from your cruising altitude all the way to the runway. So what I tend to do is I'll bring up AirNav again. So, you know, I was mentioning this, and you have this, so 13 feet, that's pretty much sea level, right? So now, a lot of times those approaches, they'll tell you what the pattern altitude is. So for you flight sim enthusiasts, your typical pattern altitude over the ground or over the airport is going to be 1,000 feet above what the airport is at, right? So in this case, it'd be like 1,013 feet, because the airport is 13 feet above mean sea level. And, you know, as we saw there. And so we're going to, but, you know, 13 feet, we're just going to go for 1,000 feet, and that's okay. But it is important when you're flying for real, and even in simulators too, because you don't want to run into somebody, is that you do adhere to the rules of flight operation within the airport vicinity, and fly that 1,000 feet above the ground level at the airport. So we got to descend. So we're right now at 4,500 feet. So we need to get to 1,000 feet. So simply that's 3,500 feet we have to lose, right? So now when we looked at our indicated, sorry, I almost said indicated airspeed. That's something different. We'll cover that in another video. When we talk about vertical speed, if we lose 500 feet per minute, how much time is it going to take us to get to our... How much time is that going to take? 7 minutes, right? So now if we look at our estimated time of arrival, we're at that. So we probably should start descending. Now, you can descend at 500, you can descend at 1,000 feet per minute. When you're on a VFR flight, even IFR, you know, it's kind of up to you. So I'm going to hit my vertical speed. Oh, make sure I'm on the right knob. And I was. So let's start at 500. So we're going to hit vertical speed, and then we're going to drop this down to 500. Now, typically what you want to do, but I've got plenty of room here, you typically would want to pull some throttle out, because as you lose altitude, you gain airspeed. Laws of physics, right? So when you're descending, you're changing that altitude into airspeed. So you will gain airspeed, but we've got, you know, we're safe here. So we're going to start descending. You can adjust that, you know, slightly. Another important thing, what did I mention, fans, before? You want to make sure you know what the altimeter is. So let's dial in Santa Barbara approach. Well, now let's just go ahead and choose Santa Barbara Municipal Airport, and then we can talk to tower. Well, I'm going to change that again. Let's... Oh, that's fine. Let's go ahead and request full stop landing, so that's 3.
Santa Barbara Tower Golf, Bravo Golf, Charlie Papa is 15 miles southeast with uniform to land.
Golf, Bravo Golf, Charlie Papa, Santa Barbara Tower. Fly straight in runway 25. Altimeter 29er, decimal 9er, to wind 257 at tree.
Okay, so what I'll do now is, I know here they want me to fly into fly onto, not into, runway 25. So we're going to set our heading bug indicator to 25. It's kind of close. Yeah, okay, we're good. So I know that's where I need to, my nose needs to point, so I need this green to be here when I'm landing on 25, right?
Golf, Charlie Papa, please acknowledge.
Oh, sorry about that. Yes, we heard you.
Straight in runway 25 Golf, Charlie Papa.
Now, the thing you got to be careful with the Piper Seminole is it will keep descending. You don't have like a set to your altitude like a lot of commercial aircraft. You can say I want to fly to 1,000 feet, so descend at 500 feet per minute until you hit 1,000, and then the plane just automatically goes into level flight. Not the case here. So with this aircraft, it will literally fly you all the way into the ground if you're not watching it. So super important safety tip. Thanks, Egon. Anybody get that reference, by the way? So don't let the airplane fly into the ground. That's bad. So we can see Santa Barbara right off our nose. I forgot to turn that off. Sorry. Sorry about that. Again, new to this, so I keep forgetting to on OBS to turn off the window. But as you can see, we've got Santa Barbara right ahead of us. So if I zoom in, there's the airport. Here's the runway we're going to be landing on. Right here is 25. There's the air traffic control tower, if you can see it. And we can always check and see how we're doing. Okay, we're at 3 minutes, and we still have, what, roughly 20, so we're at 2,700 almost. So we have 1,700, so we have 3 more minutes. So we're doing pretty good on our descent profile. So a little quick math in the head does the body good. You know, for your sim fans, though, you know, the thing is, don't worry about the math so much, especially when you're on visual flight rules. Just make sure, like the airport, when you see the airport, just make sure it's about an inch or so off the top of your dashboard. You're gonna go right to it. So if you ever wonder, like, I don't know, do I have my calculations exactly right? I don't know. I'm freaking out. I got my calculator out, or my, is it E6B? I can't remember anymore now. But yeah, here we got our clear to land. So we'll acknowledge landing. But yeah, just again, visual flight rules, right? Just fly the aircraft right in. So, but we have a pretty good defense. We got a pretty good descent profile here going. And of course, as you get kind of closer, you want to start bleeding some of that airspeed out, because especially when you're doing a straight in approach. Now, normally, you know, and what's called Class E airspace is like, you know, your municipal airports that don't have a traffic control tower. Usually what you do as a standard is I'm going to descend a little bit more here. You always want to enter a downwind, what's called a 45-degree downwind, into the downwind traffic pattern. And all downwind means is you're flying opposite direction of what you're going to land. Okay? So if I was going to be landing on runway 36, my downwind would be 18. All right, I'm going to go ahead and hand fly it. So I'm going to turn off. I'm going to pull some... Sorry about that. You always want your mixture full. There's a phrase that pilots use when they're going to land called GUMPS check. I'm just going to go ahead and put the gear down. And it just stands for gas, undercarriage, mixture, prop, and safety. So obviously gas, you want to make sure that your fuel selector is correct. Undercarriage would obviously be the gear. Put notch flaps in. Now I'm going to switch to my track IR so I can look around. Watch that airspeed. I found that 1200 manifold pressure on this bird is a pretty good one to go with. We're going to put a second notch of flaps in. Usually I do 2 notches of flaps when I'm on whatnot. Right now we're on base to final. Final is obviously when we're going to fly right onto 25. So now we're going to bank. And I like to try to keep around 90 knots. I don't know if that's actually the recommended speed for approach with this aircraft. Now when you're on final, throw in that last notch of flaps. And we're just going to let this bird fly right to the surface of the runway. Now what I like to do is, like, right when I'm at the threshold, I just gradually pull that throttle out. I start adding some trim, get my nose up, and we're just going to let this bird come right to the runway here. See how I do. There we are. Not too bad, right? Take those flaps out. Turn off my strobes to my landing, turn my taxi on. And we're there. Welcome to Santa Barbara, everybody. Welcome to Santa Barbara. We landed. Hopefully everybody had their seatbelts on, but it was a pretty soft landing. So shouldn't have knocked you around too much there if you're in my passenger seat there. Let's just go. We'll just pull straight up here ahead and park her at the terminal here. Oh, let's open. Let's get some fresh air. Oh yeah, controller's mad at me because I didn't acknowledge my handoff. This is probably good. Alright, so now that we got it set, now I'm going to turn on my parking brake. Oh, sorry, I'm going to turn my track IR off so I'm not making you dizzy. So my parking brake's lit. I'm going to turn off my pitot, so my anti-ice, there's an indicator there, is not lit. I'm going to turn off my nav, my taxi. I'm going to leave my beacon on because my engines are still running. You want to kick off those avionics so that you're not causing a surge of power. And then once that's done, pull your prop out and pull your throttle out. Turn off the battery master switch, and there you have it. All right, Sim fans, I appreciate every one of you. I appreciate you joining me today. All the questions, great questions. Really appreciate the conversation. My first live stream. Hey, we made it. We didn't run out of gas. I didn't kill us when we were doing the power on and power off stalls. I do appreciate all the questions that prompted me to do some of those things. So again, thank you all for joining me today. Look for more future content. That'll be just regular video posts on various things. I'll be doing scenery reviews, more hardware reviews, more tutorials, tips and tricks. Don't forget, on Sunday, I will have tomorrow, depending how the Super Bowl goes, because I am going to be watching it, I will have the weekly top 5 announcements for Microsoft Flight Simulator. So watch for that and future content as well as live streams as well. So again, thank you all. Blue skies. Take care.